Hi, welcome back. And if you're new, then hi, nice to see you. And I hope you like it here. All right, so today we have the topic of Ed Gein. It's kind of a long story, so here we go. Edward Theodore Gein, the Butcher of Plainfield, or also called the Plainfield Ghoul. So if I'm not mistaken, he was one of the first serial killers to receive like a good amount of national media coverage. He was convicted of murder and body snatching around his hometown of Plainfield, Wisconsin. The biggest thing to stand out in his case, in my opinion anyways, was the fact that he made these sick, twisted trophies using skin and bones from the bodies that he dug up. He kept these items in his home, and I'll list quite a few of them here for you, just so you have an idea. They found skulls on his bedposts, bowls made from skulls, a corset made from a female torso, leggings made from human leg skin, 9 vulva in a shoebox, that's disturbing, skin covered chair seats, 4 noses, a belt made from female nipples, a wastebasket made of skin, a lampshade made from facial skin. There was a pair of lips on a window shade string, masks made from female heads, a nipple doorbell. This woman, Mary Hogan, her skull was found in a box. Then another woman, Bernice Worden, her heart was found in a plastic bag. Mary Hogan's face mask in a paper bag. So yeah, he made a mask out of her face. That's literally what it sounds like. They found that in a paper bag. And Bernice Worden's head they found in a burlap sack. So all these items, remember, were in his home. Mary Hogan and Bernice Worden were the only officially confirmed victims of Gein. He confessed to killing Mary in 1954 and Bernice in 1957. Both women were known to him. Mary was a tavern owner, and Bernice owned a hardware store in town. Gein was apprehended on November 16, 1957, and arraigned on November 21, 1957. He was found unfit to stand trial, so he was sent to Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane, which is now called the Dodge Correctional Institute. Gein was found guilty of the murder of Bernice Worden in 1968, but was to remain hospitalized due to his mental illness. I have no idea why it took so long for him to be found guilty, especially since he confessed. That to me is unbelievable. So Gein ended up being diagnosed with schizophrenia, but I'm unsure what year he actually received that diagnosis. All right, so let's get into who Ed Gein was and learn about his family. Ed was born August 27th, 1906, to his parents George and Augusta. In his youth, he was described as shy, having odd mannerisms, and sometimes seemed to be laughing at his own random private jokes. My thought on this was maybe he was on the spectrum. A 16-year-old friend that went to baseball games with Ed reported that there were shrunken heads in the home. Ed told his friend that they were from the Philippines, but upon analysis later on, they were found to actually be skin peeled from corpses and used as masks. Ed was suspected in several other cases, including the death of his older brother, But no charges were ever brought against him. No other charges, anyway. So, a bit about the family. The father, George, lived from 1873 to 1940. George was an alcoholic. He had trouble keeping a job. He had jobs as an insurance salesman, a carpenter, a tanner, and he even owned a grocery shop for a while. When he sold the shop, the family went to live on a 155-acre farm. On April 1st, 1940, George died of heart failure, which was brought on by his alcoholism. Henry and Ed did odd jobs around town to help with expenses. They were considered honest and reliable. Both did handyman work. Ed also babysat for neighbors frequently. And to me, I wonder if that was kind of also an indicator of some form of autism, because he seemed more comfortable with children. But I'm not sure, that's just me speculating. All right, the mother, Augusta, she lived from 1875 until 1945. She was a harsh and deeply religious woman. In my opinion, she was very manipulative and most likely also had undiagnosed mental illness. The family was quite isolated on the farm, and Augusta discouraged the boys from making friends. She didn't really allow quote-unquote outsiders to come around. She was afraid that her sons would be poorly influenced. She had the boys read from the Bible every afternoon, and she often chose verses about murder, divine retribution, and death from the Old Testament. She preached about the evil of drinking and how immoral people are, and that all women, aside from her, were promiscuous and instruments of the devil. Henry spoke negatively about Augusta, saying how controlling she was, and stated that Ed was too attached to her. Of course, Ed didn't like that. Shortly after George's death, Augusta had suffered a stroke, and Ed had devoted himself to her care. About a year later, she had a second stroke, and her health rapidly declined. She died December 29th, 1945. Henry, Ed's older brother, lived from 1901 to 1944. On May 16th, 1944, the brothers were burning vegetation on the farm, and the fire got out of control. The local fire department responded, and by the end of the day, the fire was out and the crew had left. Then Ed reported Henry missing. So that night, a search party headed out with lanterns, and they found Henry's body face down. His official cause of death was asphyxiation, but they found bruising on his head. So I believe that Ed murdered Henry. People in town did too. But again, no other charges were brought against him, even though he was suspected. And it seems to me that poor Henry was really the only, normal person in the family. So, all right, let's talk about the farm. So Ed was able to keep the farm thanks to a subsidy from the federal government in 1951, and by doing odd jobs that he was still doing. He sometimes worked for local crop thrashing and municipal road crews. He also had sold 80 acres of land that Henry had owned, so he was doing okay. Inside the home, however, was chaos. If you search online, you can find pictures There are some on there. I mean, they're, disturbing and gross. Um, so that's up to you. If you want to look for it, go for it. But uh, yeah, it was just, the place looked like an episode of Hoarders. If you've ever seen that TV show, it was bad. It was very dirty, cluttered. There were just different items strewn all around the house, except for the rooms that his mother had used. Those rooms remained in perfect, orderly condition. Ed had kept them boarded up like a shrine. Yeah. Weird, right? And then, of course, the other things found in the house, just disgusting. Now, when he was asked for details concerning the body snatching, Ed said that he'd made probably 40 nighttime trips to 3 different local graveyards. Who do you think he dug up? Go ahead, guess. Women he thought resembled, his mother. Because of course, who else would he dig up? He has mommy issues. So, yeah, he would dig up women that he thought resembled his mother. He'd take the bodies home and tan their skin to create his trophies. He said that he stole from 9 graves and was creating a woman suit. Alrighty, so if you haven't figured it out yet, Ed Gein is the real-life inspiration behind characters such as Norman Bates from Psycho, Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. Alright, now we can get to the end here, kind of wrap it up. You're probably wondering, what happened to his stuff? Can you buy it? Can you see it? Can you go visit the farm? No. The house and property were valued around $5,000 or roughly $42,000 today. Gein's possessions were set to be auctioned on March 30th, 1958. But in the early morning of March 20th, the house was destroyed by fire. Arson was suspected but never proven. There were rumors going around that the property was going to become a tourist attraction, and in my opinion, the neighbors burned it down to ensure that that didn't happen. Again, just my opinion. That's why I'm making sure I say that. It's not, written. It's just what I'm saying. My theory. Gein's 1949 Ford that he used to transport bodies sold at a public auction for about $800, which today is roughly $7,000. The vehicle was purchased by a carnival operator, and he charged people 25 cents to see it. Ed Gein died July 26, 1984, at Mendota Mental Health Institution in Madison, Wisconsin. His cause of death was heart and respiratory failure due to liver cancer. He's buried in Plainfield Cemetery. His grave is unmarked due to vandalism. People were going there and chipping pieces off to keep as souvenirs. And then, at one point, his entire gravestone was actually stolen. So if you do visit, I imagine it wouldn't be too hard to find him, because as far as I know, he is buried with his family. So, yeah, American culture has been pretty heavily influenced by this guy, which a lot of people don't realize. And that, aside from the previously mentioned movie characters, that includes song titles and verses, and there was even a band. So, shit's wild. Okay, well, that's it for this week. Thanks for stopping by. Let's do it again soon. And, of course, course, stay safe.